Hey, everybody, and welcome again. Thanks for joining us today for our fourth session. We're diving into various challenges and obstacles we typically see clients encounter with public infrastructure asset management. If you missed any of the three previous sessions, those recordings, along with the 8 challenges primer document, can be found on our website. And joining me today to engage in our discussion, we have Eddie Staley and Steve Lander of WithersRavenel. I'll just tell you a little bit about Steve. Steve is a leading industry expert in pavement condition assessment and pavement asset management. I like to call him the Michael Jordan of pavement, but you can call him Steve Lander. With over 18 years of pavement management experience and having managed over 100 pavement condition surveys, Steve's been assisting municipalities in providing defensible cases that justify adequate funding and to maintain the roadway network at a sustainable state and providing work plans that maximize the limited funding they receive. We also have Eddie Staley, who is not uncommon to these programs. Currently, Eddie serves as the Chief Innovative Officer, where he's responsible for spearheading initiatives aimed at innovating and accelerating a wide variety of technical products and services we offer to our clients, and one of which happens to be asset management. Hey, thanks guys so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to dig into this topic because it is certainly one that is a bit more complex than some of the others, not necessarily from a technical perspective, but from a planning collaboratives perspective for sure. So Eddie, would you mind just kicking us off a little bit here with a description of what you mean by CommonCorridor assets?
Sure, Todd, I'd be glad to do that. So many times when we look at asset management, we're looking at each individual asset class, maybe water, sewer, pavement. But when we start looking at them in a common corridor, meaning I have a road right of way, I've got pavement to manage, I've got water, I've got sewer, I've got stormwater, I've got sidewalks, I've got all of this infrastructure in that same corridor. Understanding how those needs line up, the timing of when those needs line up, and really, looking at that as a whole system, not as individual asset classes. That's where we really focus on that common corridor as it pertains to asset management.
Okay, thanks. Steve, can you go ahead and build on that and tell us some of the common mistakes you see communities make when making improvements in assets that share a common corridor?
Sure, Ty, and I'll tell you the introduction of being the Michael Jordan of pavement management is a very tough thing to live up to, but I'm going to give it a shot. So some of the two main issues that we see, one dealing with new project improvements and then the old infrastructure. So with our new project improvements, a municipality paves a street, builds a sidewalk or a parking lot, and then another department or developer digs up the new improvement a year or even a month later to work on this utility within the corridor. The other department knew about the project, but there was no line of communication. So there's just one department didn't know what the other department was doing. So it's a communication issue. And then we have the old infrastructure where we don't know the age of our water, sewer under the pavement, and we go ahead and pave over, let's just say, a 90-year-old ductile iron water line, right? And the water line was already compromised. And when we hit it with the roller, it becomes more compromised. And there's many cases where our municipal clients are having to go and find the leaks in a 90-year-old water main because it's been compromised. So knowing the age of this infrastructure is vitally important.
It sounds like, the real challenge can simply be boiled down to communication and collaborative planning, right? When communities fail to do this, it can make everybody look bad. And it seems as if a slight policy adjustment, with a slight policy adjustment, a municipality could, minimize these occurrences and avoid wasting taxpayer or ratepayer dollars.
Yeah, that's right, Ty. And when we say we all look bad, the private side and the public side, it's everybody kind of gets a black eye when they're digging in new asphalt because of something we could have planned for. So a lot of times, what usually happens is that someone is screaming to get a road paved, and instead of stopping and explaining why leadership is waiting, tension builds, it comes to a head, and it just has to get done. So obviously, having a plan is crucial. And, a good part of a plan is setting goals. As Eddie was saying, we got to look at all the assets in the roadway corridor. We got to look at the big picture. Rather than just reacting, we need to explain what we're doing, and if we have a plan and we know when water and sewer projects are going to take place, we can tell the public, we say, hey, we're going to be working on your road for water and sewer in year 2025. And to that year, we're going to be doing minor repairs, keeping it functional. And once the water and sewer project is complete, then we're going to fully rehab the road. And you'd be surprised how well that goes over. When you explain the why, all stakeholders seem to be happy because there's a plan in place. So the question is, how do you get started? How do you develop a plan? Well, obviously, you have to have buy-in at all levels of the organization. And it's top down and it's bottom up. I think that everybody has to agree on the goals. If not everybody agrees on the goals, it's going to be tough to keep them. But when everybody agrees on them, it makes for working across departments much easier. And of course, when you get to larger organizations, it's a little more difficult than it is with the smaller. But you got to start somewhere, and you got to get that buy-in. Having an assessment of your assets, knowing the type, the condition, size, age, of the affected utilities is paramount. Really need to know that stuff so that we're not paving on top of the 90-year-old water mains. Once we get our data, then having modeling software, and then being able to utilize visualization tools to tell the story. We see all the needs and the issues when everything is laid on top of each other. It's easy to understand graphics. It makes for better decision making. And, it tells the story to council, because council, they don't understand utilities and pavement like we do. But when you put it onto a map, they fully understand the point we're trying to get across, and of the other stakeholders. The comprehensive look also allows the community to consider other funding opportunities that don't exist for a single asset class. We all know that for paving, there isn't a lot of money out there, and typically you're paying with Powell bill funding and the general fund. But when we're talking about water and sewer, and we know our needs, there are grants and loans that you can get out there to fix the water and sewer first, and then pave the road. So we're killing two birds with one stone, and we're stretching those dollars even farther than if we were just strictly having a paving program. So, integrated planning and the ability to visualize the work are key components to asset management. When we can get all the departments rowing in the same direction, we create an investment efficiencies and solutions that just make sense to all stakeholders.
Great. Okay, Eddie, final question, or maybe less of a question and more of a show and tell. For most communities, asset management isn't something you can manage in your head. It's a lot, right? The combinations of variations of events that can occur and may occur are well beyond what a human mind can handle. So talk to us a little bit about some of the tools and success stories you have seen from a more integrated approach to infrastructure asset management.
Sure, yeah, and that's kind of the key. And I want to hit back on a couple of points that Steve made, because they were fantastic points. Again, if our collaboration, even if we are communicating well and collaborating across departments, which many departments do, still our visibility is maybe only a 5-year window. Well, as we know, many of these projects that are being completed, they've been in works for maybe longer than 5 years, the design, the funding requirements, everything else. So we have to find a way to really be able to see farther into the future, to understand what our needs are, to really take advantage of that common corridor. So that's where some of the things like life cycle modeling, having a better understanding of what those really long-term needs are going to be, to really make some more strategic decisions. The other thing that I would say as well is when you do have that kind of longer term view, again, it opens up opportunities to go and do things like a bond referendum or look for funding and grant, funding applications out there that can help pay for this. And again, how to cobble together, different funding sources to be able to complete that entire street. Again, as Steve mentioned, maybe Powell Bill will pay for the pavement. Maybe CDBGI is going to pay for the water or the sewer. Maybe SRF is going to help pay for some of the stormwater that's there. How, being able to cobble those projects together, to take those needs and put them together into a project, that takes time. And in order to be able to do that inside your CIP, we have to be able to look a lot further than what's happening in the next 5 years. So the other thing that kind of comes out of this, and we've got some great examples. I mean, I think some of these can pop up as I'm talking, but, looking at the city of Sanford, just recognizing future opportunities where we know we have aged infrastructure, in this case, sewer, under the pavement. Even though that street may be a street that is being tagged for paving now, maybe we want to postpone that a little bit longer and let's go ahead and fix the sewer first before we do it. And again, that's really important for communicating with the public because, as we know, if you live on that street, well, why is my street not getting paved? The one over here is being paved and it's in better shape than my street, right? We've all heard that. Again, if you can show that 20-year long-term plan of how you're going to fund these projects and why you're putting them, at a certain year, why it's going to be in 2025 or 2030. Again, I think you get a lot more good graces and goodwill from your citizens, understanding that you do have a long range strategy. Another case like this is in Hendersonville. In this case, looking at stormwater. They're having some stormwater issues there in the mountains, and so stormwater is a high priority. But again, that stormwater is intersecting the road as well. Where can we find opportunities? And again, when we can understand those needs, it can also help us understand what needs can be built into a project that will fit with a grant application. That's a really big deal too as well. So, there are lots of benefits that come from doing that kind of long range planning. One last one I'll share is in Carver County, Minnesota. And they have a very elaborate decision tree of how they decide when they're going to do paving, what type of or other rehabilitative type activities on their pavement. And so very prescribed, this basically builds out their 20-year CIP for them off of that data. But the other thing that it does is the results from that model actually feed into another model that deals with their striping program. And so again, why would we go out and go stripe a road that we're planning on milling and doing an overlay on in the next 2 to 3 years? That wouldn't really make sense to go out and do that kind of work. So again, how these models can interact with one another. And as much as I would love to say as a GISP that we can just do this in GIS and it works perfectly, it's really even beyond the ability of GIS. GIS does a really good job of modeling where you are today. And it does a good job of taking these models and displaying them as a time-enabled feature class, but really that ability to go run multiple iterations of a model, thousands and thousands of simulations to find the best solution. That's really something that you have to go back to some type of life cycle modeling to be able to do that. And again, when you start to do that, even on one asset class, there's a pretty large, data set to work with. When you start to lay all of those things together and find those opportunities in that common corridor, then those scenarios go up exponentially. So again, really the only way to really be able to accomplish that is really inside some type of asset management and lifecycle modeling software. But again, if you do it, you're going to get some really great results. You're going to see the benefit very, very quickly of how it can help you make more strategic, long-term decisions, better decisions, and ultimately maximize every dollar that you invest in your systems.
Okay, guys, I think that's a wrap on today's session. Thanks so much for your time and insights today. As usual, your knowledge and war stories on both were both interesting and really could help our listeners learn a lot here. I encourage you all to join us on our next session where we'll tackle the challenges of when asset management planning is disconnected from annual capital operations and maintenance planning. For a replay of this session or a copy of the materials we referenced, you can find links to all this information on our website, www.withersravenel.com, under the news section. Or you can go in our LinkedIn feed and or you can find it under our YouTube page. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@withersravenel.com and we will get your questions to the right person. We definitely look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.